Hello, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Steve Dodds. I work with Garage Composites, and I'll be walking you through the basic compliance on how we notify our customers what we're going to do with their non-public personal information. So there are really two different pieces to what we're going to talk about today. There's the initial notification piece when we collect the customer's information, and then there's what we actually do with the information. So today we're going to talk about the first component. We're going to talk about collecting the information, how we notify the customer, what we're going to do with it. And then next week, we're really going to focus on, okay, well, how do we keep that information private? How do we only share it with the people we've told the customer we're going to? So if you've been on one of these before, you'll be familiar with Wheelhouse College. Wheelhouse College is a custom LMS that houses all of our online training through Garage Composites. It actually has Sam's Garages here, Sam's Dock, which is for the power sports industry, Sam's Peloton for the bicycle industry, and then also Power Sports Dealership Compliance. This program is designed for a compliance manager to come, get certified, and be confident that they know what needs to be done within their dealership to keep their dealership compliant. So what I'm going to do, or what I've done, is logged in to my test account, and I'm going to go ahead and play two videos for you guys. I'm going to play the financial privacy rules and then also the privacy policy form. Safeguards rules is what we're going to get into next week. That deals more with how we handle that non-public information once we've collected it. So let me go ahead and play the financial privacy rules video for you guys. So there are two rules regarding non-public personal information. Number one, you are required to tell a customer what you're going to do with their non-public information. In other words, you have to give them a privacy policy. You have to notify the customer at the time that you collect the information. So it's not good enough to have the finance department give out the privacy policy when you sell a vehicle, because there are customers who, let's say, gave you a credit application and then didn't buy from you, that wouldn't get a copy of your privacy policy. Or there are customers where, say, they wanted to go on a test ride and you got a copy of their driver's license. That's non-public information. They should get a copy of your privacy policy. So it needs to be given at the time that you collect the information. There is a part of the regulation that says that if you are also servicing loans, that you would actually have to send out a privacy policy on a yearly basis. But most dealerships don't fall into that, so you should be good in most cases just giving the customer an initial privacy policy. So that was all about the timing, and now we're going to talk about what we actually give out and keep for the customer. So pop over to privacy policy form. All right, so on your screen, you're going to see a sample privacy policy. Now, up until a few years ago, you could use a variety of any number of different forms. Now they have defined exactly the form that you need to use, in addition to, we've already talked about when it needs to be given out, etc. So what I'm going to do is just walk through this form with you. Now, there are two possible forms. There's an opt-out form, depending on how you answer this series of questions here. And there's a standard form, which does not have the opt-out. I'm going to walk through the opt-out form. The only difference is literally this right here has to be on the opt-out form, which is not required on the non-opt-out. And we'll talk about that as we go. So there are 109 pages worth of instructions on how to fill this out if you look at the law. My hope is that I can just walk you guys through this and you don't have to go through the 109 pages. One of the things that I see that dealers do that actually is against the rules is to shrink this form down, put it on one side of one sheet of paper, or modify it in any way. This is literally the form in the size that it needs to be. If you are using the non-opt-out, it fits on the front and back. You can do front and back, but it fits on the front and back of an 8.5 by 11 sheet. If you're using the opt-out form, then it would actually fit on the front and back of an 8.5 by 14 sheet. And again, you cannot shrink it. Another thing that is stated in the rule is that the form you give the customer needs to look like an original. So having a copy of a copy of a copy to the point where it's blurry and kind of distorted is not acceptable. So make sure that the form looks fresh and that you're giving it to the customer and it's clear to read. So at the top, first thing you'll notice is it does ask for the name of the financial institution. Because you guys are the ones providing the financing, you are considered to be a financial institution, so therefore that would be your dealership name at the top. So in the first section here, they've just simply explained why we're giving the customer this form. The what section basically explains what information you may be sharing. So basically, the examples they give here, income, account balances, payment history, those are pretty standard. Those are things you can just kind of leave in there. They apply to most motorcycle dealerships. So you can kind of just use the examples they use here. In the how section, the only thing you really have to change is your dealership name needs to be as the name of the financial institution. So now as we get down to the questions, and this basically breaks out to the customer what information is being shared with who and how. So for the first two questions, basically yes is the appropriate answer for the first box on the left-hand side. So yes, you will be sharing information for everyday business purposes, and no, they cannot keep you from sharing that information. Now for your marketing purposes, yes, you will be marketing to them, I can only assume, and no, they cannot stop you from marketing to them. The next thing that's asked is, do you joint market with other financial institutions? Let's say there's a local credit union that you finance through, and they want to send out a postcard that says that they are offering super rates to customers that come and buy a bike from you, say for the next 30 days. That would be joint marketing, and it would be with another financial company. So you would have to answer yes there if you do any of that kind of marketing. Now, whether they can stop you from doing that marketing or not all depends on what is being advertised on that advertisement going out. So if it specifically says for the customer to come to your dealership, so it's an ad for your dealership sent out by this other financial company, the customer cannot stop you from sharing in that way. Now, if you're going to sell your list off to this local credit union, and the credit union is going to market to your customers on their behalf, then the answer there would be yes, the customer can stop you from sharing. Now, anytime you put a yes in this column right here, you have to then use the opt-out form because the customer can stop you from sharing information that you want to share. So that's kind of your trigger point for opt-out or non-opt-out. The next question you have down here is, do you share information for your affiliates' everyday business purposes? So affiliates would be, say, a partner dealership that has at least 50% the same ownership, or it could be other businesses. Let's say your dealership also has a gun store in it, or you have another business that's affiliated that you also share information with. If the information is shared, then yes, you would say you do share it. And if you share it, the customer absolutely has the right to stop you from sharing it. So in this box right here, you would have to say yes also. And at that point, again, it triggers the opt-out form. So for your affiliates' everyday business purposes, information about your creditworthiness. So if you share the customer's credit information or whether they're approved or not with a fellow dealership, then you would have to say yes here. Some dealerships have one single portal that their finance applications come in through, and then they disperse them to different dealerships. Yes, you would then be sharing that information there. So you'd have to put yes here. In that case, again, yes, they can limit that sharing.
Next question you have is for your affiliates to market to you. So let's say you have multiple dealerships and you market to all of your customers through one single source, and it's marketed as the dealer group. So then, yes, your affiliates would be marketing to that customer, and we would have to say yes at that point. And then on the other side, can they limit the sharing? Then yes, they can limit the sharing. And the last question is for non-affiliates to market to you. So if we sell the list, we sell our customer list out to a third party, that would be basically a non-affiliate marketing to the customer. So we would have to say, yes, we do that, and yes, they can limit that sharing. So if we look at this form, once we've got everything filled out, and there are any yeses in this right-hand column, again, we have to then offer them the opt-out form. If they're all no's, then we can use the shorter form that doesn't have the opt-out. After we've filled this out, we need to let them know how they can limit the sharing. So we give them a phone number. Now, this phone number, of course, is your dealership phone number, or they can visit a website. If they have any questions, they need to call this phone number or go to this website. In this form, you would also need to list out who they would contact. So that would be whoever your compliance officer is. Probably the person watching this video would be the person on this form that the customer would contact if they had questions about what you share, how you share it, or how they can stop your sharing. On the back of the form, we basically have, who is providing this notice. So it would be a brief description of who your dealership is, what they do. You're a retailer of power sports equipment. You also service and sell parts for same equipment, something along those lines. Again, you have the name of your financial institution. So the next section, how does X dealership collect my personal information? You can leave most of these examples here as standard, and then what you would want to do is pick the second of the two phrases that basically says that, we get information from credit bureaus, affiliates, and other companies. Just letting the customer know, of course, we're going to pull your credit. We're going to collect your, some personal information on you. Why can't I limit sharing? Would be the section, if they cannot limit the sharing. Of course, you don't have to change anything here since it is a federal sample form. What happens when I limit my sharing? So depending on how you want to handle that, if you want to handle each individual customer file as a separate file, or if you handle each vehicle purchase as one file, for the sharing of information purposes, you would want to pick one of these two phrases here. And then at the bottom, basically what you're going to do is define who your affiliates, non-affiliates, or joint marketing partners are, if you have any. So you have a couple phrases to choose from. Now, as I said before, affiliates are other companies that have at least 50% of the same ownership. So you would need to say either XYZ dealership, your dealership name, has no affiliates, or XYZ dealership does not share, if you have affiliates but you don't share. Or if you share the information with your affiliates, you would need to say our affiliates are, and then you would list out the affiliates. Now for non-affiliates, you have two different phrases to choose from. So basically, XYZ dealership does not share with non-affiliates to market to you, or our non-affiliates include, and the list of your non-affiliates. And then the third section down here, joint marketing, you would choose between XYZ dealership does not joint market, or our joint marketing partners include, and the names of your joint marketing partners. And that is it for the form. Now there are, you'll notice down at the bottom, other important information. What most dealerships are doing is basically putting a signature line in here or asking the customer to initial. The only way I can prove that I gave this customer a privacy policy is if I have a signed copy on file showing that they got this form from me. And so most dealerships are having the customer initial or sign. Thank you very much. And if you have any further questions as to how to fill this form out, I will have a link on the website that takes you directly to the instructions on how to fill it out. Like I said, it's 109 pages, so have fun.
actually, as you see on the text right there, it was revised to 106 pages. So probably they just changed the font size or something. But so this right here, the privacy policy form, I'm going to go ahead and send you guys. So I've got a template here, and actually I've got that pulled up right here that you guys can use. It's a PDF template. You can just type the information in. This is the only tricky part, the questions that I went through. So if you have any specific scenarios you want to run by me, here are our affiliates, here's how we share the information. I'd be happy to give you my take on how I understand that. What I would always recommend whenever you start using a form, before you start using it, is that you run this by your attorney. Make sure that this fits the regulation as they interpret the rule. All this stuff is it's all up to interpretation. So I'm giving you the best interpretation I have based on the legal advice that I've gotten. But I would always recommend that you seek your own legal advice. Now, what I will say is that the information that I give you guys that's related to compliance all comes from the attorneys at Hudson Cook. They have multiple books that they put out. They have all kinds of information I get from them. I am AFIP certified, which is another program that they're behind. They're behind our compliance division. So I would recommend, if you haven't already gotten it, get a hold of the F&I Legal Desk book. It is a great reference guide. If you have any specific questions, this is really set up as it says, a reference guide. So it's not something you would read. It's somewhere you go to find answers to specific questions you have. So I would recommend picking one of those up if you don't already have it. You can pick it up on their website, or I think I saw it on Amazon not too long ago too. So what we're going to talk about next week is really getting into, okay, once we've collected the information, not only what do we do with it, but we're supposed to have a policy that lays out what we do with it. So it's not good enough just not to have the information get out, although that's the end goal. You want to also make sure that, if you get questioned on it, or if information does get out, that you have a policy you can point to and say, we followed this, we followed this, we followed this. This is how we protect our customers' information. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. And as promised, trying to get you guys out of here in about 20 minutes, probably a little bit over that right now. But thank you so much for showing up. Hopefully these are valuable to you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, compliance@Garage Composites, or you can email me directly at steve@Garage Composites. I monitor both those email addresses. So hopefully I will see you guys next week.